Let's jump right into this explainer. You've probably noticed it, right? This completely hidden economic shift happening right under our noses. It's a massive paradox in today's job market. The headlines tell us the economy is booming and jobs are absolutely everywhere. But behind the scenes, we're seeing huge structural shakeups in how massive corporations are hiring and firing. Today, we're going to connect the dots and look closely at the deep integration between current employment metrics, specifically the layoffs at large institutional employers, the alternate ShadowStats numbers, a deeply failing educational pipeline, and how AI is rapidly becoming the only way out for these companies. Just look at the immediate reality on the ground. Over 205,000 corporate workers have been laid off in recent mass job cuts. We're talking massive institutional employers actively shrinking their footprint. Visa, for example, announced plans to chop about 2,600 positions. That's roughly 7% of its staff. Chime, they slashed 10% of their workforce. Robinhood cut nearly 300 employees. And here's the absolute kicker. These aren't failing companies trying to keep the lights on. They are completely healthy businesses quietly slashing their white-collar workforce. Why? To build leaner, heavily automated teams. So you've really got to ask yourself, why? Why are these massive institutional employers dumping thousands of knowledge workers when the official economic metrics broadcast on the nightly news tell us everything is perfectly healthy? How can we have continuous waves of corporate downsizings hitting exactly when official unemployment numbers are supposedly hovering near historic lows? To make sense of this disconnect, we have to look past the headline numbers and dig into the deeper structural data. The sheer size of the gap between these two metrics is, well, it's honestly staggering. While the official U3 unemployment rate, the one reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, sits at a very comfortable 4.1%, the ShadowStats alternate unemployment rate tells a totally different story. Published by economist John Williams, ShadowStats reveals an effective unemployment rate hovering around 24 to 25%. That's a quarter of the workforce. This isn't just a minor statistical variance, it's an entirely different picture of the American workforce lurking just below the surface of the mainstream narrative. Now, to grasp why that 24% figure even exists, we have to understand what ShadowStats is actually measuring. Back in 1994, during a major survey redesign, the Bureau of Labor Statistics basically changed the rules. They started dropping long-term discouraged workers from the labor force entirely if they hadn't searched for a job in the past 12 months. Just like that, they were reclassified as not in the labor force. ShadowStats tracks the reality that millions of working-age adults haven't just temporarily lost their jobs, they've permanently detached from the traditional wage labor system. When you add those long-term discouraged workers back into the equation, you reveal a massive, frankly underutilized population. Section 1. The forensics of a structural deficit. To really get why we have this massive 24% detachment rate, we can't just blame economic policy. We have to dig into the root cause, a severe, structural human capital deficit. The workforce is fundamentally changing because the baseline skills of the humans entering it are, well, breaking down. Look at the data from the institutions monitoring our educational pipeline. The official ACT National Score Report shows national average composite scores hitting their lowest level in over 30 years. More than 40% of high school seniors are missing every single college readiness benchmark: math, reading, science, English, the whole shebang. And research from Complete College America shows only 19% of degree-seeking students at two-year public colleges actually graduate on time. The pipeline is effectively failing to produce baseline competency, stranding students in remedial programs and sending them into the workforce entirely unprepared. And hey, this isn't just a problem with young kids still in school. Recent data from the Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, or PIAC, proves this is a systemic workforce issue across the board. Between 2017 and 2023, we literally saw a measurable decrease in average literacy and numeracy scores across working adults in the United States. Employed or out of the labor force, it doesn't matter. The foundational ability to process complex written instructions or interpret quantitative data is measurably shrinking. Section 2. A decades-long legacy in decline. You see, this erosion of foundational skills didn't just happen overnight. We're looking at the culmination of a multi-decade slide in intellectual habits and academic rigor. It starts with a disappearing cultural legacy, the steady decline of voluntary reading. Back in 2004, the National Endowment for the Arts launched their landmark Reading at Risk studies, and they tracked a sharp 20-year decline in reading participation across virtually all demographics. They explicitly linked this long-term drop in voluntary reading directly to dropping reading comprehension scores and ultimately a devastating loss of the complex analytical skills required for the modern workplace.
The NEA's warning was incredibly stark. They stated that reading at risk reveals an equally dire situation, a culture at risk. A cultural legacy is disappearing, especially among younger people. Today, less than half of the adult population actually reads literature. This decades-long trend cements a really tough reality. Massive portions of the available workforce struggle with basic quantitative logic, critical writing, and, maybe most importantly, just the simple discipline to self-audit and check their own work for accuracy.
Section 3. Artificial Intelligence, the Executive Escape Hatch. Faced with this multi-decade decline in human capital, institutional employers are making a wildly aggressive, almost desperate pivot toward artificial intelligence. Now, you might be thinking, why don't companies just invest in training or demand better from schools? Well, because fixing the educational pipeline is a generational project. Overhauling K-12 standards, restoring higher ed rigor, and actually waiting for competent graduates to enter the workforce, that takes 15 to 20 years. Hyper-competitive corporations simply cannot pause their operations or eat the high error rates of an underskilled workforce for 2 decades while they wait for human talent to self-correct.
So, enterprise AI is fundamentally not just some trendy new tech looking for a problem to solve. It's the market's pragmatic, forced response to bypass the immense friction of an underskilled workforce. When the human pipeline fails to deliver reliable baseline capability, the market aggressively seeks a technological substitute. AI acts as an immediate structural bypass. Honestly, it appears to be the only way out for organizations that are just drowning in high training costs, unmanageable error rates, and the heavy drag of unqualified management.
And this creates what we can call the displacement loop. Step 1. Basic skill deficits plague the entry-level workforce, which makes junior hires expensive and super error-prone. Step 2, companies accelerate their adoption of AI to automate those low-skill tasks, like basic drafting, data entry, or routine coding. But here is the real kicker. In Step 3, AI doesn't just stay at the bottom. Once that infrastructure is deployed, those capabilities scale rapidly upward, causing the collateral displacement of highly skilled credentialed knowledge workers. This creates a massive squeeze in white-collar sectors. AI introduces the 10x worker. Because cognitive work, stuff like code generation, drafting, and data synthesis, is digital and measurable, a single senior expert paired with an advanced AI model can now churn out the massive output that used to require an entire department. Take Stanford's 2026 AI Index, which reported that employment for software developers ages 22 to 25 had fallen nearly 20%. Junior roles automated away. Middle managers who merely acted as information conduits, gone. The whole traditional apprenticeship pipeline is completely collapsing. Which leaves us with a pretty profound dilemma to wrap up this explainer. We are facing a two-tiered reality where automated systems do the heavy lifting, while a shrinking elite of true domain experts audit the machines. So we really have to ask ourselves, if AI is permanently removing the bottom rungs of the career ladder to bypass a widening human skill gap, how is the next generation of experts ever going to learn to climb? It's a structural paradox reshaping our entire world, and for sure, it's one we'll be watching very closely.